All right, so it's a brand new year, 2026, and you decided I'm going to start playing Guild Wars 2. And you're staring at a game that has well over a decade of content, huge expansions, a world and systems that kind of feel impossibly huge. It can be overwhelming, if I'm to be honest. It is. So where do you begin? What you focus on? I mean, it's easy to feel like you're already lost before you get outside the starting zone. Well, ideally in this video, I'm going to give you some kind of guide, roadmap for brand new players in 2026. I'll take you going kind of like step by step to create your character all the way to understanding what the end game is. So you can have a rough outline of what to do and when to do it. Now, as I've stated in a number of videos, one of the beautiful parts of Guild Wars 2 is that you can do whatever, whenever you want. There is no right way to play this game. So take this more as a suggestion rather than a concrete guide to conquering Tyria. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more Guild Wars Reforged and Guild Wars 2 content. All right, so before you can get into the world of Tyria, you got to make your character. You got to make your hero. You got to make the person that's going to be moving and doing all these different things. The first three choices that you are set up with are your server, your race, and your profession. First, the server selection is honestly, it's brought down to a very simplified way. I mean, they have two giant mega servers. Either you're in North America or Europe, thanks to basically this system. I recommend playing the one that is closest to where you are based out of. Next up is your character's race. So you have a total of 5 choices. So you have the cat-like people that are the Char, you have the plant-like people that are the Sylvari, you have your standard basic humans, you have your extra tall humans, which are the Norn, and then, of course, the token small, I'm smarter than you race Asura. Now, this part's very important. Your race really isn't as important as compared to other MMOs like World of Warcraft, where there might be certain racial bonuses. There's really nothing like that here, aside from a couple of unique skills that are tied to the races. But even at that point, they're not as strong as usually the class's specific skills. For the most part, your race is almost entirely for looks and the story flavor that you get. So choose which one that you think is the coolest to you, honestly. The only real big difference between them right now is your personal story, which is the first 30 levels of the main story for the game. So now the most important choice out of these 3 is going to be your profession. This is what essentially Guild Wars 2 calls its classes. It defines how you fight, it defines how you play the game, it is essentially the lens in which you are viewing Guild Wars 2. There are a total of 9 professions split into 3 different armor types. So you have the Soldier, which is the heavy armor, you have the Adventurer, which is the medium armor, and then the Scholars, which is the light armor. 8 are available to everyone, but the 9th, the Revenant, can only be played if you own any expansion. It doesn't have to be a specific one, you just have to own one of the expansions. Now, typically, I would recommend the Guardian, the Ranger, or the Necromancer. It's a good starter for most players coming into this game, as they are fairly easy to understand. They have a lot of forgiving capabilities with their class choices, but I will honestly always make the recommendation that every class is viable and can do just about anything. So if one catches your eye, like the Engineer seems cooler than playing a Ranger, then go for it. Do what you think is going to be the most enjoyable class for you. All right, so you've gone ahead and made your character, and now you start into the tutorial. This is essentially your kind of like crash course into the world and the UI here set up for Guild Wars 2. So essentially this is just you going and clearing out some enemies, and then you fight like a mini boss to get kind of like a grand scale of how the world feels with this. Now, one thing that I really wish that they would spend more time on focusing on is how important the dodge roll mechanic is, which is this bar right here. This dodge roll capability is so important. It is so drastically important in almost every aspect of this game that I really wish they would focus on it. Essentially, every time that you dodge roll, it gives you evade frames. So frames where you are untouchable by whatever was just thrown at you. You are immune to damage for that time. So watching enemies' animations, the giant red circles on the ground, getting in and out of those is key, honestly. And I really wish they would spend more time focusing on that. After the tutorial, you're essentially just like kicked out and said good luck. And this is honestly where a lot of players I feel like get lost, is because Guild Wars 2 doesn't have this like traditional quest log that you're used to, where it kind of holds your hands. Instead, you're given kind of like an option of like, hey, you should go and check out this vista, or maybe there's this event that's nearby, or hey, did you see this renowned heart? You do get a bit of guidance when you hit level 10, which is the next portion of your personal story. And every 10 levels after that, it gives you kind of like the core story to follow. But in between, it's really about exploration. You go out there and you just see what you can get into. That's the beauty of this game. Now, also, I want to make note, in your hero panel, you'll find something called the adventure guide, which gives you, it's kind of like quest-like tasks that you honestly just get just by being out there and doing things in the open world. You look for the golden hearts, which are the renowned hearts, which are kind of like a mini quest hub. You automatically get enrolled. You automatically get credit as you're working on them. There's actually very little interaction that you'll have to do with other people and players in that regard. And more importantly, I'd make a mention for you to check out the orange circles, which are essentially dynamic events. They pop up almost anywhere and they're random and anyone nearby can join. This is essentially the core loop of, we'll say Guild Wars 2, where it's like the spontaneous pop up of an event to take down a boss or defend a town or, you know, escort these people. It's cooperative. Everyone gets rewards based off of your participation. It's a lot of fun. Your first 10 levels are going to be essentially that, just finding your way in this world. All right, so with that up and out of the way, the core leveling experience all the way up to level 80 is essentially where Guild Wars 2 shows off how great it is. You don't really have the quest grind from other MMOs. In this game, it's almost everything that gives you experience. So you can literally earn experience from crafting, you can earn experience from exploring, from mining, from picking herbs, chopping down trees, fighting enemies. I mean, it's everywhere. You discovered a new area, revived a player. I mean, all of those different things will help push you all the way into level 80. Honestly, something that I found that helped me pass the time, mainly because I'm a little bit of a completionist, is working on map completion. This is going to each one of the zones and completing all the different tasks that are available. So the points of interest, the waypoints, the renowned hearts, the vistas, all within this individual map. And finishing all these zones give a huge chunk of EXP as well as a chest full of rewards. And honestly, you'll very quickly outlevel your current zone, but the game automatically scales you down to whatever content you are currently in. So honestly, it doesn't really matter where you go. You're still going to be earning experience and being good to go. For the best experience and leveling, I recommend staying with zones that match your level. However, you can totally level all the way to max and, you know, never really leave the first like 5 or 6 zones. Yeah, I mean, that's just truth be told. And then your personal story will kind of guide you naturally of where you have to go, and it shows you the rest of the core Guild Wars 2 story. And honestly, this game is terrible if you have ADHD, because you get sidetracked so damn easily. You get, oh, hey, cool, there's this cave, let's go in there. Oh, hey, you know, a giant dragon just landed in the zone. Let's go and fight it. I mean, that's how this game is meant to play. Honestly, it's just, you go out there and you get lost, sidetracked doing all these different things. And of course, with any MMO, you're going to be getting gear, you're going to get new skills, you're going to get traits. As you level up, you'll get more tools to play with. So I'm going to quickly break this down, the hero panel, which you can open up by pressing H by default. This is essentially your central screen for gear, for skills and traits. The first 5 skills are tied to your equipped weapon or weapons. At level 10, most professions can unlock weapon swapping, allowing you to switch between 2 different weapons on the fly in combat. The first skill on the right is your healing, followed by your next 3, which are utility skills, and then you have your elite skill, which you can customize all of these by spending hero points. The real magic happens in your trait system. These are passive bonuses that completely change how your profession plays, honestly, depending on which route you go. And you'll unlock different trait lines all the way up as you level and hitting level 80. And then from there, you can have a total of 3 trait lines that you specialize in, which will allow for some really deep build customization. And that's not even to mention the elite specializations. I'll kind of cover that when we talk about the expansions. But just for the core story, you'll level up and get enough hero points to unlock everything. So you don't really have to do the hero points that you find, although they do help. Now, as for gear while leveling, honestly, just don't stress about it. Just equip whatever has, green arrows pointing up and it looks like it's better than what you previously have. I mean, once you hit level 80, your first kind of goal is to get a full set of orange color gear, which is called exotic. And usually the gear is very cheap. It's easy to get either from the trading post or a number of different sources. And it's good for almost all content in the game, including endgame dungeons, open world bosses, etc. Exotic gear will be honestly your workhorse set for a very long time. While you're leveling, don't worry about it. Just if it has a bonus and it looks like it's better than what you have, then just go ahead and equip it. Most things in the core area go down very easily anyway. All right, so I do want to take a moment to go ahead and talk about the story. And again, it's like a decade in the making. There's a couple of ways that you can approach this. Personally, I like the idea of playing the story in chronological order. Some players would suggest going otherwise. It's really your choice. The story is really great and I very much enjoy it. And there's a lot of different things that you unlock while you're going through if you own that content. However, it's completely optional. There's so much in Guild Wars 2 that you can do and not do that it's perfectly fine. So for example, for my main character, my Elementalist, I really haven't done the personal story. I skipped it completely. And I've done some of the other stories, but I haven't played that on that particular character. And I don't really necessarily have to if I don't want to, but that's kind of the idea. So here's the chronological path if you're following along. So you have your personal story, which is the core game that takes you all the way up until level 80 and a little bit after. Then you have Living World Season 1, Living World Season 2, the Heart of Thorns expansion, Living World Season 3, bridging Heart of Thorns, and then the next expansion, which is Path of Fire. Living World Season 4, arguably the GOAT. That is the best, in my opinion. It's the very best Living World season ever included. Icebrood Saga, which is essentially Living World Season 5. They just won't call it that way for whatever reason. End of Dragons expansion, which is one of the three big ones, the end of the three big ones. So Heart of Thorns, Path of Fire, End of Dragons. Then their yearly releases, which have been Secrets of the Obscure expansion, Janthier Wilds expansion, and then of course Visions of Eternity. Now the Living World seasons are essentially story updates that bridge the gaps between the major expansions, and they're absolutely essential to the plot if you're following the story. However, also you should note that the Living World seasons do require you to be purchasing them from the gem store, which is a part of the in-game cash shop. The expansions can be purchased on Steam or on the main website. The Living World seasons, you have to purchase the in-game currency gems and then unlock the stories from the shop in there. Now, the expansions themselves are where, honestly, the biggest game-changing content features arrived. I mean, Heart of Thorns had gliding, Path of Fire, of course, brought in the mounts, which is honestly really, really great. End of Dragons had fishing and skiff riding. And then throughout those three major expansions, and of course now with Visions of Eternity, there have been elite specializations. Now, elite specializations are tied to each one of those expansions, and each one of the elite specializations changes how your character can be played in a number of various ways. So for example, if I had a core necromancer and then I decided to play Heart of Thorns and I purchased Heart of Thorns, now my necromancer can use the Reaper elite specialization, which instead of being a kind of ranged death shroud caster, he becomes a melee scythe-wielding maniac. It's really cool. They really change them around, and I would honestly look into each one of the expansions to see which elite specialization your class currently has and what may be beneficial to you. And also, as a note, Visions of Eternity is the first yearly release that has now included elite specializations in them, so take that with a grain of salt. So the three major expansions, Heart of Thorns, Path of Fire, and End of Dragons, as well as the yearly expansion, which was Visions of Eternity, all have introduced elite specializations into the game. All right, so we hit level 80. We kind of went through the story and we're just like, what do I do now? Like, you know, where do I go? What is the end game? What does that look like? And that's kind of a loaded question because it's really, what do you want to do? See, Guild Wars 2 doesn't really have that kind of endless content to grind out gear to get ever increasing slightly better pieces and constantly on that gear treadmill. Essentially, it's really what you want to do. So here are some of the endgame activities that you can do that I would recommend both in PvE and PvP, and then you can go from there. All right, so the first one is Fractals of the Mist. These are 5-player scalable mini dungeons that you and a group of players can jump into and work through this little area. You start at tier 1 and you work your way up all the way to level 100. However, at the higher tiers, you need to manage a mechanic called Agony by slotting specific special infusions into Ascended gear. Ascended gear is higher than that of exotic gear, and it does usually either require some crafting or to be purchased through a number of various methods. Ascended gear offers the best stat combinations in-game, comparatively that with legendary gear, which is another case. Fractals are a fantastic way to learn group content and earn that top gear, that Ascended gear. And it's also a great way to make some gold. They actually recently added in auto queuing this past year for the lower tier fractals, which is pretty cool. Strike missions are 10-player boss fights. Essentially, you just join in with 9 other players and then you go and fight a boss. There's no trash, there's nothing. It's like the perfect introduction to raiding. It's really accessible as compared to full raids, and it gives out pretty good rewards across the board, actually. Now, raiding in Guild Wars 2 is kind of like the bigger leads. It's the harder, we'll say, 10-player challenging content in the game. Usually has complex boss fights that demand a bunch of coordination, optimized builds. If you're going for some of the harder difficulties, it does require you to have better gear, everything to be prepared, optimized, as I said, ready to go. Now, player versus player, or structured player versus player, is one of my favorite things in this game. You can jump into structured PvP basically at level 2 once you're out of the tutorial zone, truth be told. Everyone is boosted automatically to level 80 with access to all the gear and skills that your account has access to, and it makes it pretty level as far as a fighting field for you to get into, and this is honestly where skill starts to rise up, either that or balance patches, but we'll let that slide. World versus world is the other side of PvP. This is like pure, honestly, epic chaos of open world PvP. It's a massive 3-sided war where entire servers clash over castles and keeps and large scale battles. You can join like large groups of allies known as Zergs or roam in small squads, you know, killing enemies and causing mayhem. It's a lot of fun. If you find a right group with it, it can be a ton of fun. Now, the most important thing to remember about Guild Wars 2, as I mentioned before, is that there is no right or wrong way to play the game. The game is built on horizontal progression, means that old content almost never becomes irrelevant. Legendary weapon from 10 years ago when you earned it is still best in slot today because it offers convenience, not more power. My final tips for you as far as getting started and maybe loosely following this outline, this roadmap, is first, join a guild. Honestly, the community is famously friendly and helpful. You can join up to 5 different guilds at once. So you can have one for raiding, you can have one for World v World, or one just for hanging out. Honestly, getting involved in the community is something I always recommend. The second thing I would say is getting more comfortable using the looking for group tool. You'll find it in your contacts panel, and it's how you can find groups for pretty much everything. Now, having said that, I will also make mention is that a lot of the times it can feel kind of empty. So perhaps looking at when there is peak hours, I would say asking around in the community and seeing when you might be able to find when more players are on, like usually around like reset time, which for me is probably around like 9 p.m. Eastern Standard. And third, I absolutely have to say this because I would regret if I didn't. The final boss of this game is inventory. It will fill up so incredibly fast. Click the little cog icon in your inventory to deposit all the crafting materials that you get directly into your bank from anywhere in the world. And as soon as you can afford it, buy bigger bags from the trading post. Honestly, just trust me on this one. You're gonna have so much loot, it's ridiculous. All right, so that is essentially the roadmap that I would suggest if I were to get started here in 2026. Now, this is by no means in any way, shape, or form meant to be taken with gospel. There are so many different ways to play this game. Play it the way that you want to. And honestly, if this is your first time, don't rush it. Explore at your own pace, you know, find what you truly enjoy, and never be afraid to ask for help in map chat, of course. And again, I stress, if you are new to this game and this guy did help you, please subscribe to the channel for more Guild Wars Reforged or Guild Wars 2 content. As always, stay caffeinated, folks.